The Legends of King Arthur. The Sword in the Stone. Illustrated by Mike Phillips. Chapter 1. Arthur was exhausted. He had spent the day following his brother around town as they sold the grain and eggs their father had given them that morning. As usual, Kay had taken the opportunity to visit every blacksmith along the way, admiring all the new weapons and armor. Arthur wasn't interested in swords or bows, but he enjoyed Kay's excitement as the older boy tested the weight and balance of each. Arthur could almost see Kay's mind working as he imagined himself wearing this or that shining helmet, wielding one gleaming blade or another. One day, Arthur Kay swore as he put back a spear even taller than he was. "One day I'll be a knight of the realm. I'll serve the king. I'll fight for Britain." As they walked home, Kay lopped the heads off of weeds growing along their path with a stick. It cut more cleanly than the battered sword that hung at his side did. That one had previously belonged to their father. "When we have a king again," Kay continued, "he'll need loyal knights to help him defeat the brigands Swish and warlords Chop who terrorize the land. Together we'll bring peace." Arthur didn't like to remind Kay that Britain had been without a king for so many years now. It was doubtful that they would ever have another. As for peace, it was a thing that didn't even exist in their father's stories. Arthur and Kay's childhood had been spent listening to Sir Ector's tales of King Uther Pendragon. He told them how brave and strong he had been as a ruler. Yet King Uther's reign had hardly been what Arthur would call peaceful, and it had ended without an heir to inherit his throne. Arthur doubted anyone would be brave enough, or stupid enough, to rule now. Whilst its own people fought each other over a crown, foreign invaders had begun to advance with their sights set on Britain herself. "I promise you, brother," Kay repeated. "One day?" Arthur rolled his eyes. I know, one day you'll be sitting beside the king himself." Kay cuffed him gently, but it still sent Arthur reeling into the tall grass. His brother would make a fearsome knight. "And you?" Kay laughed, pulling Arthur back onto the path. "What will you be doing?" "A noble knight needs a loyal squire, you know." Arthur shook his head. Whether he believed it would happen or not, Kay was born to be a knight. He had all the right qualities. He was brave and strong and true. Arthur was a farmer, he declared. "Whilst you are sitting beside the king, I will be growing crops and tending animals. Not wondering if I will survive the day?" Kay grinned. "Father will be pleased to hear that. At least one of his sons will carry on his good name." He glanced at Arthur. "You're not cut out for battle anyway?" Arthur ignored the sting. He knew his brother was right, but it didn't make the words hurt any less. He and Kay couldn't have been more different. Kay was bigger and more muscular. He enjoyed learning to fight and to find the weakness in a suit of armor. Arthur was skinny and took no pleasure in either. But despite their differences, and Kay's constant teasing, Arthur knew that they would always be there for each other, no matter what. As they rounded the final bend before their family farm, they stopped. Up ahead, an old man holding a wooden staff stood by a rickety cart. His horse nervously pawed at the ground, whilst 3 men raided the goods he carried. Instantly, Kay's hand flew to the sword at his side, but Arthur grabbed his arm before he could pull the weapon free. Kay glared. "What are you doing?" he demanded angrily, trying to shake himself free. Arthur only tightened his grip. "Stopping you before you do something stupid." Finally, pulling himself free, Kay moved away from Arthur, sword sliding from scabbard. "What would you rather we do, Arthur? Hide whilst they steal from an old man?" Guilt flooded Arthur. How could he even think about running away when a poor old man was being robbed right in front of them? Swallowing hard instead, Arthur looked to Kay. "What should we do?" he whispered urgently. Thankfully, the robbers were far too preoccupied with the old man to notice two boys on the road ahead. First of all, you need a weapon. Kay handed his sword to Arthur before pulling a dagger free from his belt. Looking down at the nicked blade in his hand and then back to Kay, Arthur said, "But this is yours. Father gave it to you. Just follow me and remember what Father and I have taught you?" Arthur nodded, but his mind had gone blank. What had they taught him? Kay grinned. "And, if all else fails, just keep swinging until you hit something. Just make sure you don't hit me." With that, Kay raced towards the cart, his dagger held high, screaming a war cry that could strike fear into the heart of even the bravest knight. Surprised, the boys, it turned out, stopped looting. They turned to see Kay charging towards them. Leaping from the cart, the smaller two disappeared into the trees, whilst the biggest jumped down and drew a sword. Arthur's blood ran cold as he watched his brother closing in with only a dagger. Without thinking, Arthur raised Kay's sword and charged, echoing his cry. There was fear in the boy's eyes, but it was quickly replaced with determination. He faced his attacker, blade now raised to meet Kay's. It was too late. Arthur would never make it in time. Suddenly, moving faster than Arthur would have thought possible, the old man stepped forwards. Reaching out, he tripped the boy with his staff. The boy fell face first in the dirt, rolled, and came up spluttering, desperately clawing at the ground for his blade. Kay was already kicking it out of his reach. "Think it's brave to pick on an old man, do you?" he demanded, as Arthur skidded to a stop beside him. I am sorry," the boy cried, his eyes wide. "I was just..." Kay turned away, fixing his attention on the old man, who was now leaning on the cart. "Are you well, sir?" The old man nodded. "Thanks to you two brave souls," he wheezed, glancing between them. Arthur blushed, embarrassed by his share in the praise. He had done nothing to deserve it. Kay looked back down at the boy on the ground. "Get out of here," he spat, nudging him with his foot. Nodding, the boy scrambled to his feet, eager to put as much distance between himself and Kay as possible. "He forgot his sword," Arthur pointed out. Kay's eyes lit up. "My sword now," he announced, retrieving the weapon from the ground and gazing at it lovingly. At the same time, Arthur bent down and fetched the old man's fallen staff. "Here you are," he offered. The man took it. "Thank you, dear boy. T.M. Arthur, and this is my brother, Kay." "I am Emery's," the old man replied, drawing his threadbare cloak around him as he circled his cart. "You shouldn't travel alone, Emery's," Arthur said, realizing that the old man intended to continue his journey. "It's not safe." Emery's eyes twinkled. "Then I shall hope to meet other brave souls, like yourselves, to help me?" Arthur frowned. He couldn't let the old man go when he had just been attacked. "Our farm is only a little way from here. You could spend the night with us and rest before continuing on your way tomorrow." "Arthur," Kay warned quietly, "we barely have enough food to feed ourselves. Our father won't mind," Arthur insisted, ignoring him. He gestured to the old man's horse. "It looks like your mare could do with a rest." Emery's sighed. "I'm sure she could." He patted the animal and smiled suddenly at Arthur. "As could I." "You do your father proud by taking pity on an old man. And don't worry about the food," he added to Kay. "I have food that I would gladly share with you and your